Okay, this is part 4 of Blood Moon Prophecy, and we will be starting in Psalm 102, verse 12.
During this cycle of series of 4 moons, the Shemitah year begins on this date. I'm going to give it to you. You may want to write it down. You can watch for it. It begins on September the 25th, 2014, and ends on September the 13th, 2015. And the astounding thing for me is that in the Shemitah year, it will begin on the first day of the Jewish New Year, 2014, which will be the Feast of Trumpets, and will end following the celebration of the Jewish New Year 2015. It will begin on the Feast of Trumpets. It will end on the Feast of Trumpets. Now, during the Shemitah year, it is an event, whenever it has occurred, that is in some form or fashion changed history. I could go back a long ways and show you some stuff, but I'm going to give you this much. I'm just going to go back a little ways, okay? Here are some of the astounding things that have taken place in some of the more recent Shemitah years in the world. The Shemitah year of 1973 was the year that the Supreme Court decision of Roe versus Wade occurred, which, by the way, has resulted in the death of 60 or more million people. The Shemitah year of 1980 is the year that Saddam Hussein invaded Iraq, blew up the nuclear reactor over there, but ever since then there's been unrest in that part of the country. In 1987 of the Shemitah year, that is the year the stock market crashed and people lost their life savings. In the Shemitah year of 1994, that is the year Yasser Arafat returned over there in the Middle East. He returned in the Middle East and began to persecute Israel. That is also the year that there was a tremendous earthquake in the United States. How many of you remember that? When the highways collapsed, it spanned the whole western part of the United States and went clear on up into Canada. The Shemitah year of 2001 was the year that America was attacked by radical terrorists, killing nearly 3,000 people in the World Trade Center, and many after that. I did a funeral from a friend of mine who went up there to work and inhaled all of that dust and all of that stuff from those buildings and died from it. The Shemitah year of 2008, we experienced a stock market crash on September the 29th, where the stock market fell almost 800 points in one day. All of those events occurred during a Shemitah year. Add 7 years to that, and you have the year 2015. Another Shemitah year, in which you find the last 2 blood moons that will appear after a total solar eclipse. All of it landing on the feast days of Israel. Never forget this, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to take your Bible and come with me to Psalm 102. I want you to know that God has a time for everything. He has a set time, whether we like it or whether we don't. And he has a set time especially for Israel. Psalm 102, verse 12. But thou, O Lord, shalt endure forever, and thy remembrance unto all generations. Thou shalt arise and have mercy upon Zion, for the time to favor her, yea, the set time is come. There's a time when Israel is going to be, God is going to say about Israel, you have persecuted my people for the last hour. We know that there are 3 tetrads, or 4 blood moons, that have occurred in the last 500 years that are significant to Israel. What's different about this one is that it occurs within a Shemitah year, and it ends on the Feast of Trumpets, or Feast of Tabernacles, and it will also have in the middle of it a solar eclipse. Man, it's astronomical that this will occur in this way. I'll just tell you this. The occurrence of a lunar eclipse is common. The occurrence of a total lunar eclipse is not quite as common. The occurrence of a tetrad, or 4 blood moons, 4 consecutive blood moons with a lunar eclipse in the middle of it, is rare. The occurrence of a tetrad, or 4 blood moons consecutively with a solar eclipse in the middle of it, is very rare. But a tetrad of 4 consecutive blood moons with a total solar eclipse in the midst of it, falling on Israel's feast days during a Shemitah year, hasn't happened before. And so here's how these coming events concerning these blood moons and their significance to Israel will unfold. I'm going to give this to you in order so that you can see exactly what happens and when it happens. I'm going to do it very quickly. The first blood moon has already occurred, April 15th of this year, on the Jewish Passover. That has already happened. That's over and done. Rosh Hashanah, or the Feast of Trumpets, begins on the 25th day of 2014, which is the first day of the Shemitah year. The coming Shemitah year begins that same day. The second of 4 blood moons, as I told you a minute ago, occurs on October the 8th, on the day of the Feast of Tabernacles during the Shemitah year. Don't miss this. After the second blood moon and before the third, in the middle of it all, on March the 20th, 2015, there's going to be a total solar eclipse during this Shemitah year. Unbelievably rare. On April 4th, 2015, another of the 4 blood moons will occur on the feast day of Passover, and on September 13th, that's a unique date, Rosh Hashanah, or the Feast of Trumpets, will be celebrated again, and the Shemitah year will end on that day. Then there is the last blood moon that will occur on September 28th, 2015. That's how this is all going to unfold. You can keep that and look at it and watch it for yourself. As you know, many nations in the Middle East right now are presenting visible threats and are making severe accusations and are attacking Israel. Radical Islamic organizations such as Hamas and Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda and many, many others are constantly inciting strife, causing bloodshed, and as far as I can tell, they want all-out war with Israel. Who knows where it's going to go or how long it's going to last or what the result will be. But here's where you and I find ourselves as we sit here in August 2014, looking out over a year that is a coming Shemitah year with all of these rare things. The enemy of Israel is surrounding their land, the land that God has made a covenant with, and most of the rest of the world is not at all interested in standing with Israel. She is, as I said last week, for the most part, all alone, and being condemned for defending herself now. While most folks are focused on that, they just don't really realize what it means to live in a nation where rockets happen to fall in there about every other hour. So let me tell you this. We are seeing the signs of a terminal generation. Now I want you to take your Bible for a minute. I want you to come with me to Matthew chapter 14. I'm sorry, Matthew 24. And I want you to go down, if you would. Go all the way down to verse number 32. Now learn a parable of the fig tree, Jesus says. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. So likewise, when you see all of these things, know that it is near. What's the things he's talking about? Back up to the first part of Matthew 24, and it says up there, beginning with verse number 5, it says, For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. You shall hear wars of rumors and wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come, but the end is not yet. Nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, famines, pestilences, earthquakes in various places, and all those things. And then it lists some other things on down here. And then it says this in verse 34. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass, till all of these things be fulfilled. What are the signs of the terminal generation? Well, the signs of the terminal generation are these. The rebirth of Israel as a nation, the ingathering of Jews to their land, which now there's no more Jews left in Ethiopia. They're all home. The Jewish control of Jerusalem, which now takes place. The deception on a global scale, we're seeing that everywhere. Wars and rumors of wars, disease. How about the Ebola outbreak in Africa? Earthquakes. But then there's also this. Don't know if you know this or not, but I'll call it the resurrection of the Hebrew language. Up until 1881, the Hebrew language had not been spoken, had not been the spoken language of Jewish people since Bible days. But the modern Hebrew language, or the modern language in Israel now, is Hebrew. That is the language mostly used over there by Jewish people. In fact, take your Bible and come with me to the Old Testament book of Zephaniah. Now, if you don't know where Zephaniah is, Malachi is the last book in the Old Testament. Go to the left, you'll run into Zechariah. Then you'll run into a little book called Haggai, and then you'll run right into Zephaniah. Zephaniah chapter 3, verse number 9. For then I will turn to the people a pure language, that they may all call upon the name of the Lord to serve him in one consent. If you look that up, the pure language is the Hebrew language. So there's the resurrection of the Hebrew language. Then there's this. There's this explosion of knowledge. Let me tell you this. Look at the technology of today. You can speak to anyone. Listen to this. You can speak to anyone in the world in the blink of a moment unless you live out here by Paw Paw. You can do so by Facebook. You can do so by Twitter. And by the way, for all you people that have asked me, I don't do Facebook and I don't Twitter. I've never tweeted in my life. Okay? I wouldn't know how to tweet a Twitter. But there's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's email, there's text messages, or you can just call somebody from your cell phone, you know? Now for me, I used to have a smartphone. I don't have one of those things anymore. I just had to get a regular phone to make a phone call. My phone is so out of sync with the rest of the world. I got it from Linda back there. She had to order it to make a phone call, okay? But you know what? Those of you folks that are out there with these new Galaxy 5 Samsung phones, or 4s, or whatever you got, let me tell you something. In about 6 months, they'll be right out of date. You know why? Because man's knowledge is doubling every 8 or 9 months. You can log on to the information highway on the internet, which allows you to every search engine that's available. You can watch your favorite TV programs from a device that fits in your pocket or in your purse. You can share pictures, you can share videos, and no doubt there is a generation that we are the generation that is experiencing this explosion of knowledge, especially when man's knowledge is doubling every 8 or 9 months. There's the birth of nuclear warfare. I want you to take your Bible and go with me to Zechariah chapter 14. Yes, I'm almost done.